this is being funded completely through this partnership model that we've created, a corporate partnership model. In the first year, we will work exclusively with Olympic partners, and the reason we're doing that is because we can use the profile and the publicity and the association with the Games to really kind of launch this and create a lot of publicity around it. And we've had a lot of publicity already, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. So we have, at the moment, two of these, what we're calling founding partners, who are BP and Deloitte, and Claire was going to talk a bit more about what she's doing today. And then a number of the other sponsors who've made contributions to help us get this programme off the ground. And we're in discussion with virtually all of the Olympic sponsors at the moment to get as many of them on board with this in time for the Games. Oh, I'm just going to show you now a short video. So we launched on the 29th of September with an event in East London in a social enterprise. The entire event was delivered entirely by social enterprises. It was quite difficult, I have to say, but it worked really well. There was only one slight hitch. And we had the chief executive of 2012. We had Jonathan Edwards, who's an ambassador for the Games. And we announced our first two social enterprises that we'll be supporting. And we started with two at the expand stage. First of all, we thought it'd be easier to find for launch, and a stronger story as well. And the two enterprises we launch with are Bikeworks, who I know have had a lot of plaudits in the sector. But for us, they ticked all the boxes in terms of the potential to create jobs in East London, and they're a very strong, thriving enterprise who are ready to expand nationally. And we also selected an organisation called Blue Sky Regeneration and Development, who do contract agency work in recycling, going into catering and grounds maintenance, and all of their employees are ex-offenders. And through their programme and the people they've employed, they've reduced reoffending from 60% to 15%. It's an incredibly successful story. And they want to take advantage of all that investment going into East London and want to be part of that growth. So that was what we announced. And coming back to why we've linked to the Games, it's generated the most enormous amount of media interest. We got something like, I think our reach was about 8 million in terms of our launch publicity. We had a whole page in the Times. We even got in the Sun. I don't think Business in the Community has ever been in the Sun before. So it's got and the interesting, the story is it's the link between the legacy and the stories of those people creating enterprises in East London, and the press really like those stories. So we will be doing more and more of that as the project goes on. Well, where next? You're probably thinking, why am I talking about this in Wales? I have found as I go beyond London that there isn't always great interest in the Olympics, and I'm perfectly aware of that. But we're using the Olympics as the opportunity to sort of kick us off, really, give us the profile and give us a step up, and it's a big opportunity to do that. But once we've proven that model, we want to take it outside of East London, outside of London. We'll also take our corporate support beyond the Olympic partners. We're constrained until the Games are over, but to be honest, it's not very far away now. So we're already talking to businesses broader than the Olympic sponsor group about how they might want to get involved after the Games. Simon Harris is here, as I said, our Wales director. He's already sort of laying the ground in Wales in case this is something that you feel that you would like us to work with you in Wales to develop. And we would go through all the same processes that we've gone through in London, because obviously everywhere is different, and everything has to be tailored to local needs. So what I know Simon is very well connected into the sector anyway, but so we're just keeping an eye on that, keeping an eye on what's going on and looking to see where the next places are that we want to go to. All I will say is we won't have a big national explosion in 1 year because we can't cope with it. We're going to take it slowly and carefully to make sure that we get it right everywhere we go. And the other thing we're doing, and this is what Claire was going to talk about, we are already supporting the national strategies of our corporate partners. So with BP, this very much sits in their community investment programme, and we're working with them to fit it into that strategy. And for Deloitte, this is part of a much bigger programme that they are about to launch around corporate social innovation, as they're terming it. And they're launching a programme called the Deloitte Social Innovation Pioneers, and they're launching it next Thursday, I think, the 23rd. And that's something you'll be hearing a lot more about because it's another opportunity for enterprises, social enterprises, to engage with the corporate sector and get some support. And again, they're looking for, I think, really companies at that expand stage who are ready to move up. And I can certainly make sure you get some information about that afterwards, but that's coming very soon. So everything that we're doing with this programme with Deloitte, we're feeding into their wider programme as well. So that's it in a nutshell. I won't go on to Claire's slides because she's not here, but if anybody's got any questions or anything they'd like to ask, I'd be happy to answer. Yes?
The gist of your presentation, the majority of the jobs will be generated from services going forward?
When you say services,
linked to infrastructure and authority contracts and that sort of.
we're incredibly open about where the jobs come from. I think we've got an application process that we assess all those enterprises coming in, and what we're interested in is at the moment is can they create jobs in East London, but at the same time we do have some knowledge of where jobs are likely to come because we know, we've been working with the Olympic Park Legacy Company, for example, who have the 25-year master plan for the park, so we have an idea of where jobs will start to be created. So yes, there will be a lot of jobs associated with the development of the park itself.
What, can you just give me the top 3 jobs you have such a...
I don't at the moment. I don't at the moment, no.
And in terms of long term, I know the infrastructure.
But what, because enterprise and innovation to longevity.
Yes.
Will there be a enterprise and innovation support hub? Will there be a central point where people can go rather than just go through all various local authorities and committees?
There's a groundswell of organisations and a movement, I think, in East London wanting something to happen like that. I don't think it's us and it's not this project on its own. I think there's a number of organisations that need to work together to make sure something like that happens. So you've probably heard talk of East London Technology Hub. There's Old Street roundabout where there's new technology companies coming there. Cisco are talking about an innovation centre. Siemens have got a sustainability centre. There's a lot of activity starting to go on. We would very much like to see something on or near the Olympic Park that supports social enterprise, a physical space. But we don't think it will be us to do on our own. We'll have to do it in collaboration with a lot of other organisations. And we have just started early conversations with a few of those like-minded organisations, including some of the partners we're already working with, to say, okay, how could we start to make this happen?
Okay, because I'm private sector.
Yeah.
I'm specialised in innovation.
Yeah.
And hopefully global innovation. So we're talking about foreign exchange as opposed to cannibalising economies. What we've been piloting the last 6 months is innovation and enterprise hubs in some of the toughest places in the valleys, where they get to know what it's about, they get linked into it, they get actively doing things in it. And it seems to be creating a mindset and a changing perceptions and that kind of stuff. So if we were to make a proposal based on what we're doing there to you, and you tell us who we should talk to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So if I go to Simon or you?
Well, yeah.
There he is.
Yeah,
I'm here.
is.
Sorry. I don't know whether people are here at the back there. So, at that point, I'll stand up. Just to try to answer that question, and I was going to reinforce a few points that what this is all about, and I think more broadly what BITC is all about, is trying to mobilise the private sector. And those people who know me will know of my background in social enterprise. I have a particular interest in this. And what it's all about really is just trying to mobilise the private sector, to tap into that wealth of knowledge. And I think Jane explained quite clearly the 3 stages. But going beyond what we currently do in Wales, we have a partnership actually with the Wales Culture Centre to get private sector employees to mentor social enterprises. One of the big things about social enterprise, I think John Charles's quote is brilliant. It's just one of the big things, massive potential. Let's take it to the next stage. How do we do that? I thought we've got a lot. So I'll start again. We've got a lot to learn actually in both directions, from both private sector to social enterprise to private sector. But that's what this sort of project is all about. In terms of your question, I think what we have to do, and what I know BITC will do, and what I'll be trying to do, as Jane says, is to do this through partner organisations. It's not for us to provide support to social enterprise directly. It's for us to provide additional service that will be, I think one of the issues is raising awareness, but working with the Co-op Centre, working with the Social Enterprise Coalition, working with those existing organisations in Wales to say, look, what we are bringing to the table is the opportunity to work much more closely with the private sector. And it could be through mentoring, it could be through premises, it could be through the specialist advice, which I think is really exciting. It could be through finance. I don't know enough about the finance. It depends how successful we are, how you are, Jane, in terms of replicating some of that sponsorship outside of Wales. So it's quite simple. I think it's very simple. It's just private sector. Let's engage with it more in giving the private sector, the opportunity to help develop and take forward social enterprise. And let's do that with our partners in Wales.
And I think what you're talking about is creating a physical space and innovation.
It's physical, online and virtual, and we private sector, so therefore we wouldn't ask anybody to help us do it. We would
do it. Sure. But we need to know who do we talk to, because in other words you can network us in 10 minutes, you can tell me the 3 names, and we just get on with it. We're not expecting you to...
Is it enterprise generally or social enterprise?
We have created also an innovative social profit companies, we call them.
Okay, all right.
So high growth social enterprises with global markets. That's what we're going for.
I think you can keep in touch with me.
Yep.
We'll make the link.
Great, thanks. Use the button.
Stand everyone to sign.
Oh, I've got a new job. How did that happen?
Yeah, I just had a question really around about what you felt were the barriers that prevent these partnerships from succeeding. Because interestingly, Jane, I think what you were talking about is that in terms of when you were trying to bring the sectors together and the partnerships, the difficulty was in actually locating the social enterprises. It wasn't getting the private sector partners involved.
I'll throw out a big plea. We need a national database, a comprehensive national database of social enterprises. And that means all of the organisations in this sector have got to work together on it. I sat at a conference last week where somebody said, well, we've got 2,700 and we've got 5,000. And Paul Drescher from Waite said, well, apparently there's 60,000 now. So where's that? Where's that database if we want to find them? And it's quite a simple and practical thing to do, really. But, so, yeah, there's a... But I know you get it in every sector. Everybody's off doing their own thing. And sometimes there's certain things that you all need to get together for the common good. And... finding social enterprises, understanding, there was discussion earlier, and I think it's true. There's organisations out there that I don't think are social enterprises that are claiming to be, and I think where it's most sort of worrying for the businesses is when, they're basically, there's charities out there claiming to be social enterprises, and it's a completely different model. They're grant funded, they're not social enterprises, and it confuses the corporate sector. And then if it's too difficult for them to engage in it, they won't do it. So we've got to make it easier for them to understand and to identify. And I think that's what we hope we can do with this programme. But obviously, we can't do it all. But through this programme, businesses coming to us know that actually we're working with social enterprises.
Do we have any more questions?
There's one there.
The problem I've been having lately is you're saying the likes of Waits and that find it difficult to actually track these social enterprises. Well, on 4 separate occasions I've contacted Waits and many other of the larger organisations, and yet they still won't engage, and that's where I'm finding that there seems to be a barrier there as to they're trying to contact social enterprises. I know for a fact I've contacted them and I don't seem to be getting anywhere. I don't know if I'm not contacting these people at the right levels, but it seems to be I've been in contact with people from Birmingham, Cardiff and London, and it just doesn't seem to be going anywhere whatsoever. So I'm making that connection.
I can tell you the right person at Waits to speak to if you want, and I'm sure they'd be happy to speak to you.
I have spoken to 3 separate people, but it's not just Waits, it's other organisations as well. You make that connection and it just seems to die a death.
Well, it's not easy, and one of the reasons it's not easy is because every company's doing it in a different way, and I suspect the hardest one is to try and go straight into the procurement department. I think that's the hardest way, and I think with Waits, it's come as part of their community investment strategy. That's where it's come from. But now they're working with the procurement people. So if you spoke to the community investment people, I'm sure you'd get a positive response, or if not, at least a reason why. So I think every business does it. Every business does it slightly differently. So I think what we're trying to do is bridge that gap somewhat. But yes, it is hard. But if ever you want to get into any business, you've got to do a lot of research and make sure you're getting into the right person. I always think you've got to find somebody, you start with somebody who's sympathetic to your cause, even if they're not the decision maker on the thing that you want. If you can get somebody inside who's sympathetic to your cause, they'll help you find the right person. So I could find you somebody sympathetic to your cause in Waits. And it quite often is, even though we've said all the way along we want to make this part of mainstream business, we want to get it out of the CSR department, because we don't think engaging with social enterprise is a CSR activity, or it should be part of the mainstream. Quite often, though, those are the people who are more sympathetic that can help you get in and talk to other people. But I know how hard it is getting into any business.
Can I just quickly add? I think we need a framework. I mean, it's hard. BITC is about making links and connecting people and brokering relations. And what we try to do is to broker relations between the private organisations and community-focused activity that they could get involved in. And this is a particular example, social enterprise. And it's quite challenging for us. Waits is a really large organisation, and many of these organisations are really large. I think if we can give them a framework so that we go through channels, it's an extra sort of contact, I suppose. We go through channels such as BITC, all through the Co-op Centre. We got a partnership with them now to support social enterprise, come through a channel like us, and we can do the research, which is the most suitable organisation that could potentially support you. So there's a framework that we're offering in terms of trying to make the connections between social enterprises that want support and those private sector businesses that could potentially provide that support. And as I say, it's hard enough for us to deal with very large organisations to find the right people, but you know, that's what we are doing and hopefully improving on it. So hope that helps. You could come join us.
One more question.
Hi, I'm Desiree Mansfield. I'm with Monmouthshire County Council. And can I apologise because I've got a really bad throat at the minute, so I'm not usually this quiet, actually. I'm a community development officer, as I said. I work with local authorities, so I was quite interested in a couple of things that have been brought out, the links with partnership, etc., and particularly the data of social enterprises within the areas that we're looking at. It's often difficult because of the very definition of social enterprises. You know, what is a social enterprise and how people perceive that. We work very much with the grassroots social enterprise organisations, developing whatever they want, giving them all sorts of training and support from committee skills and governance. But I think one of the key things, which Simon, you just said, is about having one point of liaison. And the question, I guess, is there are a lot of organisations, unitary authorities, support organisations in Wales, probably run slightly different to the models that we see in England, but the concept's the same. With knowledge and with information and delivering agents. And one of the things that we're trying to achieve in Monmouthshire is the business mentoring support element. So I'd be very interested in talking to you about that. But the question really is about, in Wales we have some very strange funding elements. So certain organisations can only work in certain areas, convergence areas, for example. Monmouthshire, unfortunately, tends to slip the net quite a lot. So whilst I agree that all of this activity should be done, it's not fair across the board. But I suppose what we should be doing is looking at the partnerships, you know, developing our partnerships and links and networks outside some of that funding regime. So I would support everything you've said, but I would say it's not actually going to be not a lot of people are going to be able to actually get into that network, if you like.
Well, I think you've explained exactly the reason why we've made this business-led and private sector funded and not public sector funded, because we don't want to be beholden to any funding regime. We decided we want to create 1,000 jobs in the host boroughs of the Games. We don't want a local authority coming up saying, actually, 75% of them have got to be in town hamlets, and you've got to locate here. That's exactly why we haven't gone down that road.
I think the point that I was making there, for example, with Wales Co-op, we have met with representatives of the Wales Co-op now, because there are other funding regimes that have allowed them to have staff or resources that will now allow that activity to come into Monmouthshire. That's not always been the way, and I think that was the point I was making, that, you know, not that it's not accessible. We appreciate that, obviously, we're in the social sector, and individuals, and we can access where we like.
What we hope, as we take this out to other locations, is that we have developed this corporate partnership model. It's a significant investment by these companies, and we've now developed another level, which is a sort of a location specific, so as we go out to other locations, they can engage. And it's something that we're not going to go to different locations and say, we expect you to raise the money. We're going to raise the money. We're going to say, this is the model, we're going to bring it here, this is all the elements of it, these are the people we need to work with, and we will raise the money and roll it out. We're not looking to come to you and say, we want to work with you and you've got to find money for it. It very much is a private. It's not easy, believe me, it's not easy, but that is the model, and that's what we're determined to stick to. And I can tell you there's been lots of debate about this, and lots of people thinking it's not the way to do it, and people going, run after this bit of money, run after that bit of money. We're not doing that. We are sticking to our guns and using a corporate partnership model here and getting the corporate partners to support us. So if it comes, we want to bring it with the money to run it.
I'll certainly be happy to chat about it how we can help it.
Good. All right.
Okay, I think we've got time for one more quick question if anybody has another question for Jane.
Okay. Just a little bit of market research. I'm just wondering if how many people are here from the private sector? Okay, thanks.
Maybe not that quick.
No. Okay.
Well, time for one more then.
I'll ask you much.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Right, so what do I need to do?
Think with you. Yeah. Oh gosh. This is going to take about 20 minutes now.
Yeah.
You okay? Yeah. Oedden ni'n meddwl, rhai blynyddoedd yn ôl, dwi'n gweithio i Antur mewn fawr, mentor cymdeithasol, wnaethon ni ennill gwobr a gaethon ni mentor o un o'r banciau, un mentora ni. A oedd un o'r cyfnodau mwy anodd yn yngwaith i, achos oedd e'n trial newid ni i fod yn fath a ryw rhoi performance indicators ni, fath a sy'n ni'n rhedeg banc. A yn y pen draw, oedd rhaid i fi droi rownd a dweud, wel, sgwni sut eich banc chi'n perfformio, sy'n ni'n mynd â hanner eich staff chi o'na, a rhoi hanner y staff nôl i fod yn dysgu, sut eich chi'n perfformio wedyn. Beth bynnag, ymwestiwn ydy, i ba raddau dych chi yn busnes o gymuned yn gallu addysgu y sector breifat wedyn o be ydy identity, mentor cymdeithasol, sut mae grymuso byrddau reoli, beth i gwir diwylliant lle mae bobl yn dod a gwerthoedd sy'n tu ôl i hyn i gyd. A ydy hwnna'n greiddiol yn eich gwaith chi, achos pan dwi'n meddwl am beth yn y ffordd ni'n gweithio efo cymunedau Gogledd Cymru, mae hwnna mor sylfaenol sy'n bwysig iawn. So ni'n meddwl bod yn bwysig iawn mor ardal yn Cymru bod rhywun yn mynd dan groen hwnna, a hwyrach mae dyna fysa'r legacy hefyd bod y sector breifat wedi dysgu am y sector, y trydydd sector.
Great question.
No, you did it well.
Yes. It's a really good question, and it's a very key part of our role in terms of what we're doing. And I think you're right. One of the things that we found when we were researching with a lot of enterprises who've been around a lot of support, some of them were mentored out, to be honest. It's sort of, please don't send any more mentors in that are just going to give us a general bit of advice and then walk away, or leave us with a report that we've then got to implement because we won't be able to do it. So I think that's a good point. And what we're doing is, this whole project comes from the focus of the needs of the social enterprise. So we're doing very detailed needs analysis with those social enterprises that we're working for. Then we go to the business and we sit and talk to them and we work out with them who would be the best people, what's the best skills, what kind of things they do. The skills bit is easier. I think you're right. The cultural fit is harder. And it's quite hard to take somebody from a huge organisation and put them with a tiny, tiny business, and for them to, first of all, understand that although this business is small, it's driven, it's very values driven, which makes them different, and actually they're out there and they're doing it. You know, so it's easy to say, oh, you should do this or you should do that, but actually they're out there, they're doing it, and they're running this business and they're doing it successfully. So there is, that's a very tricky thing to do. Personally, I think you do it by introducing people gradually and getting them to know the sector and getting them to understand the issues and doing it over time. And what we found, we started, like Simon is now, we started with just a mentoring programme in London, which still runs. And we introduced a lot of new people from the business sector to social enterprise through that mentoring programme. And they learn, they all love it. They get into it and they love it. They love the idea of social enterprise and they love working with them. So I think as long as you introduce it in the right way, you will sometimes get matches that don't work. So we have to be absolutely on the ball about that. Say, this isn't working, we have to pull people out, we have to change it. But it's a very, very important part of what we're doing, and we're paying an awful lot of attention. And I think the point is, it's always coming from the point of what is the need of the social enterprise, not what does the business want to do, what experience do they want for their employee. It's coming from the point of what does the social enterprise need. That also means that we aren't just saying this business is matched with this enterprise. We might have one enterprise working with 4 or 5 different businesses because we've got those different skills that we bring from the different businesses. So we are, yeah.
Ga I just say un pwynt arall? Sorry, yr ail beth oedd am y pwysau fysa rhywun yn gallu roi ar fenter gymdeithasol i fod yn sefydlu a trio bod yn gynaladwy o fewn cyfnod byr iawn, achos bod yr rhaglen ariannu'r Olympics yn rhedeg achos yn ôl ym mhrofiad dwi'n gweithio i fudiad oedd yn elusen 5 mlynedd ar 20 yn ôl, sydd erbyn hyn yn fenter gymdeithasol, a bod eisiau gadael i fenter gymdeithasol datblygu ar y pes. Dwi'n gwybod bod eisiau sens o cynaladwyedd ariannol, ond bod eisiau rhoi y pes iawn o ran iddyn nhw datblygu hefyd.
I agree with you, and I think our selection process is designed to make sure that we are getting businesses that are ready to make that leap, that are ambitious and want to grow. And if they're not really ready, they're not really fit, the selection process weeds them out, to be honest. Because, and we won't leave them with nothing. We'll just say, you're not right for this programme, but we'll have other ways that we might be able to help them, signpost them to somewhere else or what have you. But I think the process that we're going through is rigorous enough to spot if we think somebody's just making up a few figures off the hoof really quickly because they think they're going to get some help. Also, this is not a quick in and out either. That expand stage, we're talking about 2 years worth of support there. And we also know that once people start engaging with people, they don't leave it there, even if they're not in the programme anymore. If they're working with a business, invariably that relationship will go on. You're right.
Dyna ni felly, there we are then. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Jane. Thank you very much indeed for coming along. Thank you for the presentation and also for taking and answering the questions so adeptly.
Thank you.
Many thanks indeed.
Thanks very much.